Okay. So when you initially log in, the dashboard page, the page you come to, it's the page that I'm sharing here. And it's mostly just used for navigation. And again, we're just going to take a look at some high level stuff here in this. So there's a tabs list on the left-hand side of the screen, correspond with buttons on the bottom of the screen for season management, race management, profile, things of that nature. In terms of the interesting things on the dashboard page, there's a couple of things that I want to show you. One, the app favorites section. This will show you the number of people who have gone to the My Race Pass app and favorited your tracker series. The advantage for people favoriting your tracker series is that they'll actually get push notifications on their phone, on their tablet, device, whatever they're using, when your races start, when your fantasy groups are open, if you have a cancellation, if you do news article, those types of things. So they'll actually get notified on their device for those specific instances. So valuable there as well. And then on the very bottom of this page, if we scroll all the way down, there's two things down here. There's one, the help and support section, where you can get links to the our knowledge base for all of our Help Center articles. There's over 200 of them now for you to peruse as you have time. And then there's also a sandbox. Sandbox is a siloed environment that's a direct copy of your live environment data. So you can use your sandbox for, testing a different lineup scheme or see what happens if I click this button, those types of things. But I'm going to jump quickly here into the profile tab. And there's actually a new feature to show you about in the profile tab as well. So we'll get to that too. But profile tab starts with updating your images, right? You can update your profile image, your header image, and you can also edit your profile information, which, for a track, basic information, the link, the shape, the banking, those types of things. You can also have your address and phone information shared, and this is information that's showing in the app. So if you have a website through us, this isn't website information. This is information in the app people can see about your facility, setting up your app profile. There's also location data in here, which would give people directions via Google Maps to your facility, wherever you have it pinpointed. So that is valuable for you. And there's also a track features area. Now, the top half of the screen, typically it won't change, right? Like unless you change your phone number or physically pick the racetrack up and move it somewhere else, stuff isn't going to change. Track features, I always advise people to go in here at least once a year and make sure that this is still accurate, because I like to think of this as amenities information, right? What does your camping look like? Do you have ATMs on site? Do you take credit cards? Do you sell fuel? Do you sell tires? Those types of things. You want to make sure that that information is accurate. And then there's the aliases section here at the bottom. Aliases shows kind of what you would expect it to show. If the racetrack has ever been known by a different name, you can add that old name as an alias. Somebody searches for the old name in the app, it will, still bring them to the correct profile. So that also comes into play for, if you've got a racetrack that can be searched by multiple names, make sure you put all of the variations to your track name here. So if somebody searches for that, they still are able to find it. I look at like Pittsburgh's Pennsylvania Motor Speedway. Oftentimes that can be searched Pennsylvania Motor Speedway or PA Motor Speedway. So, put those aliases in there correctly. Billing is the next option here. Billing will show you, the financial information, right? The card on file, the current subscription type, all of your previous invoices, those types of things. At the bottom of this screen, you'll also be able to grant all access subscriptions here as well. So if you've got people who need access to the paid features in the app, you can grant them access this way. I see that there's a question here in the chat. Dakota, I'm just going to have you circle back for the questions in the chat. So if you can answer those, that'd be great. So yeah, you can give people access to the paid features in the app, depending on the plan type, either 2, 4, or 6. All access accounts can be granted here. Users is the next area. Users will show you different permission levels and the folks who have access to them, right? So the site admin users, you can go through here, add, remove as necessary. I can add user permissions. I can first name, last name, and the email address associated with their My Race Pass account, and you can add a user permission that way. The permission levels, I'll explain here briefly. A site administrator is the same admin levels that you've been used to in My Race Pass for a long time. I mean, nothing's changed there. If the scorer or managing the website, or basically whoever is the site administrator, has access to all the features. And then there are individual features that are broken out here in these permissions as well. A box office user has access to the box office point of sale system for selling tickets at the entry gate. The ticket redemption user has access to the in-app scanner, or the scanner in the point of sale system as well. So the ticket redemption can, scan tickets. Designer role is something that's an internal tool for folks who have a website through us. You won't ever add anybody there. That's internal. And then the newest one is financial reporting. And this takes us to a new feature here. Financial reporting is the new payments tab, folks who have access to it. By default, whoever is on your ACH form will have access to the financial reporting tab. But then anybody who has the financial reporting permissions will have access to it as well. So let me skip to that one and kind of show you what this is. This screen will show you ACH information for the payments that have been made to you, whether those payments be for tickets or for apparel or for registrations. Anytime we ACH money to your bank account, it'll show in this payments tab. Give you kind of an example of what that looks like with a real profile, right? I can click the link. I can see whether it's for tickets, registrations, or apparel. I can see all of the individual orders. And I can see the total that was paid to your bank account. So those things are valuable there for the ACH payments view. Permissions and clear caches are developer tools. You won't see those. But payments is the newest feature in my race pass. Really just a couple of weeks old at this point. Maybe not. When I say a couple, it might be just like a week and a half. But it just is a way for you to be able to see the ACH deposits that we have sent to you. And that's the profile tab. That's kind of the getting started stuff we were going to look at. We're also going to look at season management here. Season management, basically think of it as getting ready for the season type things. So you're adding a schedule. You're getting a registration out there. You're looking at your point standings and points information, fantasy racing options as well. So I'll kind of go through these tabs one by one. It all starts in config. Config is where you add the series or you add the classes that are racing at your track throughout the course of the season. Now, if you're in here as a series, you wouldn't add a series, obviously. You would add the tracks that you're racing at. So, regardless of what you're doing, you can do it that way. So if I'm a racetrack, I am going to add the series first. The reason I would add the series first is that it also adds the class associated with that series at the same time. Two birds with one stone, right? So if I go in here and I go to type in, I don't know, we'll go World of Outlaws late models. World of Outlaws late models, you're going to see what looks like an error message, but it's just telling you World of Outlaws late models requires the Dirt Super late models class. So it's telling you that it's going to add both at the same time. So 2 steps in one if you add your series first. Once your series are added, then you can come through and add the classes that you're running that are independent of any traveling series, your weekly classes, right? So I can go in here. I can search through, if I go to all classes, I can search through all the types of racing. Let's say this is a midget class. Then I can add the different types of midgets that we've got in the program as well. So you can do it that way. If your track is sanctioned by WISSOTA, IMCA, USRA, Crate Racing USA, Hart, those types of things, then when I go to add classes, I can choose, instead of all classes, I'll choose sanctioned classes, and then I can choose the sanctioning body that I'm with, right? So if it's the Power I date, I can choose Power I, and I can add the Power I, B mods or Hornets or late models or whatever Power I class. That goes for any of the sanctioning bodies. So it's important to know it's important to differentiate here the difference between a sanctioned class and an unsanctioned class. Sanctioned class, use the correct sanctioning body moniker, right? If it's a WISSOTA late model, choose WISSOTA late models if it's sanctioned by WISSOTA. If it's not a sanctioned class, choose one of the out-of-the-box classes. And, of course, those are all independent of any class that is added by a series. So once you got all your classes added here, then we can come to events. Events is where I'm going to start adding dates to my schedule in order to, put a schedule out there so people can see it and you can score those races, those types of things. So I've got multiple schedules here as a part of my season. And I guess I just want to differentiate the difference between a season and a schedule here. A season is just a calendar year, right? So when I go up into the upper left, I can see I've got a 24 season here. I've also got individual seasons for all of my previous years. I can also add new. When it comes down to 25, I can add 25. Jan 1 to December 31 of 25. So a season is just a calendar year that houses all of the information that you're doing throughout the course of a year. A schedule, you can have multiple schedules within a season. A schedule, think of it as a grouping of events, whether that be for points purposes or otherwise. Most of the time it's for points purposes. So if I'm a series, I think of like, the Red Clay series in the Southeast, where they've got their Southern tour, their Northern tour, and those are both individual separate point standings. Or I think of like Corrigan All Speedway with their Big Six series, where they've got a 20 race schedule throughout the course of the year, and then 6 individual nights that they have a separate point standing for. Or I think of like a multi-day event, right, where you're running 3 nights, and the lineup for the last night is based off of the points of the first 2 or something like that. So those are the reasons to have multiple schedules. Once you got a season, once you got a schedule, and your config is filled in, then you can start adding events to that schedule. So I'll add an event. I'll choose today's, or I'm going to choose Friday's date. I'll choose Friday the 12th, and I'll add that event here. When you go to add an event, you're choosing the class, and these class options that you have are the classes that come from the config tab that we just talked about, right? So those are the options that you'll have to choose from when you're adding that date. You can also name your event. You can add description information about your event, whether that's ticket prices or if there's a county fair in town or running order or whatever you want it to be. Then you can add times, right? Pits, gates, hot laps, and racing. When do those times happen? We also have times in here that you see for time trials and eliminations. Those only come into play when you've added a drag type class, drag racing type class. But once you've got all that information the way you want it, you can go ahead and add that date. Once that date has been added, you can edit any date that you add here. What did I say for the 12th? You can edit any date by clicking on the event name, right? You can rename the event, redo the description, all the time information that's in here as well. Add or remove classes or series in this view. One other thing you can do is you're going to add tickets. And we're not going to talk a lot about tickets until Friday. But if you do need to add tickets, if it's just general admission style tickets, you can add tickets in this interface. Click the Add Tickets button. You can either copy from previous events or you can start from scratch. It's very simple to add tickets to your event, right? You're basically choosing the availability, when they want to go on sale, when they want to stop selling. If there's a pre-sale availability, some kind of discounted price for early purchasers, you can add the pre-sale date when that expires. And then ticket types, right? General admission, adults, kids, seniors, whatever. If you've got a VIP box, if you've got whatever you want to sell, you can sell them through here. You're basically just typing in the number of available. So I'll say I'm going to sell 1,000 general admission tickets at $25 a piece. So I'll type in 1,000 and then I'll type in $25 a piece, and I can go ahead and add those tickets. So adding tickets to your events happens very quickly. And we'll talk more about tickets on Friday. I'll keep moving along here. The next thing I want to talk about is registrations. Registrations is a way to gather driver information either before the season or before an event. And so we're talking about drivers pre-registering, they'll send you name and contact information and address information and emergency contact and transponder number and car number and years raced and all sorts of different things. There's a lot of information in there. So always good to gather that information and have the drivers audit it themselves, as opposed to you trying to, read their handwriting or type it in or whatever. If you can get the drivers to register online, that helps. And again, you can either do that on a single event basis or an annual basis. There's also a registration option for general registration, which I always think of as like a non-racing event, be that a pit party or a banquet or something you need people to just basically RSVP for. And then you can also charge for registrations as well. So if that's a single event entry fee, if that's a year-long license or membership fee, if that's, the entry fee to a golf tournament or whatever you need it to be, you can, add pricing for your registrations and, and gather your registration fees or income that way as well. And again, we disperse that directly to your bank account. I tell you, at the end of your first season, one of the most common things that I get from racetracks always comes down to registration, right? It's, I've got all of their financial information for the year. How do I get their addresses? Well, you have them register. Or how do I get mailing labels for only drivers that raced with me this year? Well, the registration would have been the way to do that. Those types of things. There's just so many good reasons to have that driver information on a yearly basis, at least. You're really doing yourself a disservice if you don't have a registration available. And the My Race Pass registration is a convenient way to do that. Move forward here into points. Points is the next tab that I'll show you. Kind of what you would expect the points page to be, right? There's the events, the features, the wins, the top fives, all of those types of things. I can click on the name of any driver in this list to get a night-by-night breakdown of how they earn their points and pay. So like, for instance, if I click 3-5 for this driver, finished fourth, 270 points, $1,850, those types of things. So, I mean, you can be able to audit this list on a night-by-night basis. You can also audit that list on an event-specific basis as opposed to by driver. So I can look at the included events in that points tally. I can also look at the non-points events, right? Any events that I did not calculate points for would show here as well. And then there's the championship settings option at the bottom. Championship settings is an advanced championship calculation, we call it. So any kind of customization of a points tally, whether that be for throwout nights or rookie-only point standings or multiple classes combined into one points tally, different things like that warrant an advanced championship calculation. And so those are available to you. Payments tab is existing here as well. Payments kind of shows you purse payouts for every night that you raced, for every class that was a part of that event. You can get your 1099 report from here. You can print checks from here on a nightly basis. You can export this information to QuickBooks. You can print mailing labels. A few things that you can do here. I'm going to save the bulk of this page for Wednesday night when we talk about race management. But this is, that's a kind of a high level view of what this page does. Fantasy racing is the next option here. Fantasy racing is a fan engagement tool, and I really don't want you to think of it in any other way. I mean, yes, it's a game that you can play on your phone, whatever, at its core, it is a way for you to engage your race fans at a more deep and impactful level on their device, right? So people, my age and younger and even older anymore are going to be on their phones at your racetrack or everywhere they're at in life, no matter where they're at. They could be at the airport. They could be in the dentist chair. They could be at your racetrack. Does not matter. They're going to be on their phone. Give them a way to interact with your event on their device as opposed to, checking out how their buddies went camping or whatever, thinking I should do that next weekend. Fantasy racing is that. It is that fan engagement tool. It's a competitive thing that forces fans to pay closer attention to your event in the app. And that's why it's valuable to you. Fantasy racing works with no input from you. Based off of the entry list, fans make picks. Based off of your results, points will accumulate automatically. At the end of the night, you'll have an overall winner and a winner in each class. And those class-specific and overall leaderboards will continue to accumulate points throughout the course of the year. So you'll have a season-long fantasy champion in each class that you ran, as well as an overall champion. So what can you do to augment that experience? We can do two things that really pop here. One, you can add prizes, right? You can give people an enticement to play fantasy, to continue to interact with your event. Whether that be, pay-per-view subscriptions or merchandise or something from a marketing partner, like 50% off oil changes from Bob's Garage or something like that. Fantasy prizes is a way to encourage activation of whatever you've got going on in the app. And a huge piece of that is how your announcer interacts with the crowd talking about fantasy racing. Second way to augment that experience for fans is to change the name of the leaderboard. You can change the name to whatever you want it to be. And so that doesn't have to be some creative name. No, this is an opportunity for revenue. You can take your fantasy challenge and you can go to a marketing partner and you can say, I have a way for you to get in front of our most passionate and loyal of fans in a way that no one else can offer you because you're using My Race Pass, right? If you're using My Race Pass, you have the option to put naming rights to a fantasy challenge in front of a marketing partner, and no one else can offer that. And so that's why it's valuable to you. So what does that mean? Naming rights. Naming rights is revenue, money. If you can make money at something, don't let anyone tell you that it's a bad idea as long as you can make money doing it. And so theoretically, you sell marketing partnerships for your fantasy leaderboard for $600. You've now paid for My Race Pass for the year. It now comes as a wash to you. So I don't want you to scoff at the idea of, Bob's Garage Fantasy. I want you to embrace that and use this as an avenue to pay for your My Race Pass for the year, or even earn you more money beyond that if you can find a marketing partner that is willing. So that's where fantasy really becomes valuable to you. Engaging your race fans and revenue from naming rights. And that's really all we have to look at here through season management. Suspensions, we'll kind of look into that a little bit deeper when there's more features that are fleshed out there. A lot of suspension management is still available for sanctioning bodies specifically, and that kind of holds the weight right now for suspensions. So that's really what I have to show here. The next things that I want to show you are the placement of some of our reports. We have specific reports that are for season management and for race management, depending on what tab you're on. And then there are other reports in the reports tab as well. So I just want to go through some of those special reports in season management and race management. So if I go to season management, there's a reports tab at the top of the screen. You can view your current points and pay, your point averages for IMCA or WSOTA, and then that suspension bypass report. Like I said, we'll cover that a little bit more in depth later on. But those point averages really always encourage folks to have a copy of, maybe even a printed copy of those point averages before you get to the racetrack. Drivers are going to argue about points. That's just the nature of race car drivers. So have the point averages ready to go so you're prepared to answer some of those questions. The bulk of the reports, though, really come out of race management. Race management is where a ton of those specific reports are. So when I go to the reports tab in race management, I can look at the entry list, the addresses for the entry list, the transponder list, and that is so valuable because of the option to tell you who rented a transponder or not. If you're doing transponder rentals, that transponder list right here is where you can start to see who rented a transponder from you so you know who to chase down. There are 3 different lineup reports that are available depending on what you are comfortable with or want. And that could change based off of staff member, right? A scorer might want something different than an announcer, might want something different than the lineup shoot guy. But there are 3 different lineup reports that you can look at here. I like the lineup sheet. Of course, I'm choosing an event with no lineups calculated yet. So let me go back here, see if I can find one. I like the lineup sheet because as an announcer, right, I get number, name, hometown, all in lineup order. That makes it nice for me. But there are different options there, and you can kind of do what you want there. Results, there are 2 results reports, right? One is just regular results for the race types that you run, where they started, where they finished, car number, name, hometown, all that kind of stuff. But there is also a media results option. Media results just puts everything in a string of text. What I like this for is I like to copy and paste the A feature results out of this screen, or copy it here and paste it to the bottom of a news article so I can get that full feature finishing order in any press that I write over that event. So that's where that becomes valuable for me. Beyond that, points and pay awarded for the night, points and pay awarded by race for the night, passing point options in case you need a passing points report. Again, the IMCA and WSOTA point averages, and then your race manager assignments are in here as well for those reports. And that's really all I had planned to show you here today. I told you I wasn't going to take up too much of your time. When we come back Wednesday, talk about race management. So your entries, your lineups, your results, your calculation of points at the end of the night, your calculation of payouts at the end of the night. And with that, we'll also talk about the process of connecting to orbits and connecting to Westhold. And then because we're talking about nightly payouts, I'll also show you the 1099 report Wednesday night as well. And then on Friday, we'll come back. We'll talk about websites, talk about news, talk about tickets. We'll talk about advanced ticketing features like packages, punch cards, season passes, and reserved maps, those types of things as well. So But I appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate you taking the time out of your evening. We're getting tantalizingly close to racing season across the country. In many parts of the country, it has already started. I can't wait. And I can't wait to see you guys at racetracks and events, whether that be trade shows or major events. So I just want to, again, thank you for taking the time out of your evening here tonight. And thanks again for being a member of Team MRP.